I stood quietly in the living room of the house I'd helped rescue more times than I could count. Not from fire or flood, but from life's slow, creeping emergencies. The time Dad was out of work for months after back surgery, I covered the mortgage. During the COVID crash, when half their retirement evaporated overnight, I helped refill the gap. Just last spring, when the furnace died days before a snowstorm, I paid the contractor up front before they even got the chance to call for help. But today, I wasn't here to fix a crisis. Just helping Dad scan health insurance papers. Something I did so often it had become routine, 10 years in. And he still hadn't mastered the printer scanner. He always said I was great with technology. Though I'd spent over a decade managing projects, not networks. The stack was waiting for me on the dining table, papers fanned out like fallen leaves. I flipped through them efficiently. Test results. Medicare letters. A couple of utility bills. Then I saw it. A thick, cream-colored folder. Tidy. Precise. Mom's handwriting labeled it Estate Plan Final Copy. He hesitated. I knew better. But last week, I'd paid the property taxes $2. 178. 41. Straight from my account. After this, I'd swing by the pharmacy to pick up their refills. Like always. So yeah, I opened it. Inside a notarized will. Dated 2 months ago. The house. Fully paid off. Remaining retirement accounts. A life insurance policy. Every asset. Every cent left to Mason Rivers. My brother. 29. Unemployed. Still living at home. He'd dropped out of college. Twice. Dabbled in music. Which mostly meant garage jam sessions and YouTube uploads that barely reached 200 views. Mom and Dad always said he was still finding himself. My name appeared once. One sentence. We love both our children and trust they'll look out for each other. That was it. No note about the taxes. No mention of the savings I'd wired without being asked. Not a word of gratitude. Just silence wearing a smile. I stood there, the scanner humming beside me. My hands didn't shake, but my chest. It felt like something was caving in. Dad walked back in, a coffee mug in his hand. Steam curling in the sunlight, getting through that pile. Danny, he asked casually. Like nothing had shifted. Like everything was still normal. I held the folder up, not high. Not dramatic. Just enough for him to see. Is this real? I asked. My voice soft but unshakable. Everything goes to Mason. He froze mid-step. The mug hung halfway to his mouth. For a second, I thought he might pretend not to know. But then he let out a long, weary sigh, the kind that fills a room with things unsaid. It's not what you think, he offered, without looking me in the eye. I didn't reply, because it was exactly what I thought. He didn't explain. He didn't try. Just stood there, holding his coffee like it might defend him. We figured you'd understand, he finally said. Understand? That word again. That word they always used when they wanted to excuse something without owning it. You're doing well. Danielle, you've always done well. There it was. Their favorite line. Dressed up like a compliment but hollow as a drum. What they meant was, you don't need anything. And because you don't need, we don't need to give. That wasn't love. That was a transaction. One they assumed I'd agreed to simply because I kept showing up. I placed the folder back on the table, my fingers slow and careful, like I didn't want to crease the lie. Then I stepped outside. The screen door clicked behind me as I stepped onto the porch. The swing creaked under my weight, familiar. Steady. I had installed that swing myself 2 summers ago. Same week the deck railing gave out. I hired a contractor to fix it because Mason said he was in between paychecks again. Back then, it didn't bother me. I'd always been the one to handle things, to fill the cracks before they spread. This house had shaped me. Every memory, every active duty was carved into the wood and walls. I grew up here, shared a room with Mason until I was 13. When Dad finally finished the basement, I remember the day we painted those walls blue. Dad, Mason, and me. Mom brought out lemonade and said, "Look at our little team." A team? That word used to mean something. I stayed in Nashville after college because Mom said she slept better when I was close. I turned down a job in Boston, more money. Faster growth because I told myself family came first. They never asked me to sacrifice. They just never told me I didn't have to. Over the years, it added up. Groceries when their SNAP benefits were delayed. Utility bills when the checking account ran dry. Car insurance when they fell behind. And then the big things like wiring $11,000 from my savings to save the house from foreclosure 4 years ago. No hesitation. No questions. Just me. Trying to keep them afloat. I didn't do it to be owed. I did it because I wanted them to feel safe. But now, sitting on this porch, looking across the yard at that weathered oak tree, Mason's initials still carved into the bark, I couldn't help but wonder, did they even notice? Did they ever think about what I gave up? Not just the money, but the life I might have built somewhere else, ease, freedom, peace. Or had I just become the one they didn't need to ask? Because I always showed up first. The swing shifted gently beneath me as I sat in silence, staring at the yard that had once been our whole world. I could still hear the low, steady hum of the scanner inside, a quiet reminder of everything I'd just uncovered. Then the screen door creaked again. Mom stepped out slowly, wearing the same pale blue cardigan she always did when something hard needed saying, the one from that Christmas when I gave her a gift card, and Mason handed her a burned CD. She said she loved them both equally that year. I wonder now if she meant it. She didn't sit at first, just stood near the edge of the porch, twisting the hem of her sleeve between 2 fingers. "Danielle," she said, neither warm nor sharp. "Just careful." I didn't look up, let the silence sit, but she came closer anyway, easing herself down beside me on the swing. I felt the wood shift slightly beneath us. "We didn't mean for you to find out like that." I gave a small nod. I wasn't going to make it easier. She exhaled, not a sigh. Just the breath of someone letting go of a weight she couldn't carry. "It's not that we don't love you." I said nothing. Because what kind of love forgets your name the moment it's inconvenient? Her hand reached for mine. Warm. Unsteady? Mason's had a harder time. She said, "You've always been steady." Danny. Steady. Reliable. Strong. Words meant as praise, but really just a license for others to lean on you, expect from you, drain you without shame. I pulled my hand back. "You could have told me," I said. My voice was level, low. "You could have asked." She looked down toward the grass, eyes glassy. And then she whispered, barely audible, "We had to co-sign for Mason. He needed help." The words didn't sting. They settled like cold water in my chest. "How much?" I asked. No reply. "Mom." "How much?" Still silence. Then, like she was admitting to a crime, she said it. 35. I didn't slam any doors. I didn't yell. I didn't even cry. I just stood up from the porch swing, walked back inside. and picked up the folder one last time. Then I left it on the table. Right where I found it. Not as an accusation, just as a boundary. A quiet line between who I used to be and who I was no longer willing to keep being. That night, I canceled the automatic deposit I'd set up years ago to cover their utility bills. Then I deleted the recurring reminder to refill their medications. I paused the grocery delivery account that brought food to their doorstep every Thursday at 4. No big speech. No dramatic confrontation. Just absence. A quiet retreat. A silence that had weight. Days passed. Then a week. Nothing. No calls. No texts. New questions. At first, I thought maybe they hadn't noticed. Or maybe they thought I was just busy, burned out from work. Needing space. That's the problem with always showing up. People forget you ever had a choice. By the second week, the messages started. Dad texted first. Water bill's higher than usual? Can you take a look? I didn't answer. Then Mom says we're out of the low-sodium crackers. Mason forgot to get them. Left it unread. Still. No panit. They weren't worried yet. They thought I'd circle back. Like always. But then came the third week. Mom texted. No greeting. No warmth. Just a single line, mortgage is due. Can you send what you normally do? I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed ask Mason. It's his house now. Hit send. 5 minutes later, she called. I let it ring. Then another message, please don't be like this. We need to talk. But I had already said everything I needed to say by choosing silence. They didn't stop trying. That same evening, Mason finally spoke up. A message came in, Danny. Don't make this into a big thing. Just help them like always. Like always. 2 words that landed heavier than any insult. As if I'd been nothing more than a routine, a habit of generosity too predictable to be appreciated. I read the message twice, then wrote back. You're the one they chose. Mason. So be the choice. He didn't respond. The next morning, another notification. This time a money transfer request from Mom. San Lambe. Exact amount of the overdue mortgage and penalties. No noche. No explanation. Just numbers. I declined it. Within minutes, the phone rang. Again. Then again. Followed by another text. We could lose the house if you don't help us. And finally, from Dad, you'd let your parents go homeless? I nearly laughed out loud. Homeless, no. Just uncomfortable. Just uncertain for the first time in years. They weren't facing the streets. They were facing the weight I had carried alone for so long and now refused to carry any longer. So I turned off my phone. They hadn't lost me when they rewrote the will. They lost me when they assumed I'd keep giving without ever needing to be seen. A week passed after I declined the transfer request. The quiet that followed was almost eerie, more silence than I'd heard from them in years. And yet, somehow, it was louder than the begging had been. I started sleeping better. I stopped checking my phone first thing in the morning. I cooked just for myself. For once, my life didn't revolve around someone else's needs. But in my family, silence never lasts. Not when there's blame to assign. The first crack came in the form of a voicemail from Aunt Lori. She rarely called. Always said she didn't want to get in the middle. But that morning, her voice was soft. Cautious, I'm not picking sides. Sweetheart. But your mom's really worried. Maybe just talk to them. That's when I knew they'd started telling the story. I opened Facebook. It didn't take long. A photo of their porch. The caption, we gave everything to our children. Sometimes, Giving isn't enough. Dozens of likes. A few thinking of you comments. And then Mason's comment. Some people think family is about money. They forget it's about showing up. I closed the app. Not angry. Just hollow. They weren't just disappointed. They were reshaping the truth, casting me as the cold daughter. The selfish one. Because I had finally chosen to stop being used. They showed up on a Thursday. I should have expected it. The ignored texts hadn't worked. The silent treatment was wearing thin. Guilt was losing its grip. So they escalated. At 10:42 a.m., the front desk called my office. Miss Rivers, your parents are here. And a man who says he's your brother. I stood in the hallway outside my office. Eyes fixed on the tiles as the receptionist continued. They said it's urgent. They want to come up. I took a deep breath. Please let them know I'm unavailable and they're not expected. A pause on the line. They said they'll wait. I nodded, though she couldn't see it. Then let them. I didn't rush. I finished my meeting. Replied to 2 emails. Took my time. When I finally walked downstairs, they were there clustered near the entry, standing too close, like they'd rehearsed their formation. Dad, tense, arms stiff. Mom clutched her purse tightly. Mason looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. They all turned as I walked through the door. Nobody said anything at first. I crossed my arms, kept my voice steady. Mom was the first to speak. Already on edge. We need to talk. I glanced past her. Out to the street. Calm. Quiet. Still. I didn't answer. Dad cleared his throat. You'd really let us lose the house over this. I let the question settle between us. Then you really thought I wouldn't. He opened his mouth. But I cut in. You left me out. You gave everything to Mason. And now you're here asking me to keep doing what I've always done. No reply. Mom stepped closer. Her voice softening. We thought you'd understand. You've always been strong. I nodded slowly. And you used that as your excuse to forget me. Mason muttered something unclear, but I caught the tone defensive. Wounded. But you took it. I told him. All of it. He looked away. Dad's hands now planted on his hips. His tone sharpening. We raised you. Fed you. You owe us something. I almost laughed. I paid that debt. Month after month. Year after year. And you erased me anyway. Mom's voice cracked. We didn't mean to hurt you. I stepped closer. Eyes steady. Then why did it take me disappearing for you to realize I was the one holding it all up? Silence. Mason reached for the door. I raised my hand. Don't. You're not coming up. You're not coming in. I won't be your answer anymore. They stood there. 3 people I once called family. And me, I was done begging to be seen. I didn't block their numbers. There was no need. The silence I gave them said more than any outburst ever could. It rang louder than arguments. Sharper than slammed doors. They still texted. Mom tried soft words at first. Dad grew colder, accusing, demanding. Mason. As always. Mostly stayed quiet. Until one message finally came, you think this makes you better. Walking away, I didn't answer. A few days later, I took a walk. No destination. Just movement. My feet wandered without asking permission. And somehow, I ended up back in the old neighborhood. The street hadn't changed. Cracked sidewalks. That same half-painted fence. But the house, our house, was different. A for sale sign tilted slightly in the yard. The shutters were peeling. The grass had gone dry. The porch light was off. The wind chime I had once hung there was gone. So was the swing I had repaired with my own hands. I didn't walk closer. I didn't need to. I knew what had fallen apart inside. I could feel the emptiness from the street. That house never kept me safe. I kept it standing. Now it was no longer mine to hold. My phone buzzed once. Then again. I didn't look. I didn't need to see the name on the screen. I already knew. I let it ring. Let it fade. Then I turned and walked away. It started small. A vague post from Mom's sunflower emoji. A photo of her and Dad smiling on the porch. The caption read, "We raised them with love. We did our best. Sometimes love isn't enough." No names. No direct accusations. But I knew, and so did everyone who'd been watching from the sidelines. Aunt Trish commented, "You're such wonderful parents. You deserve more." The next day, Dad posted something longer, more pointed. "We gave our time, our money, our hearts. We thought we raised them right, but you can't control who walks away." He tagged me. No call, no message. Just a tag, like throwing a spotlight onto me for all to see. I didn't reply, but I watched. Likes. Comments. Dozens of them. People I hadn't spoken to in years chimed in with opinions. This generation doesn't know what sacrifice means. And then came Mason. He shared Dad's post with his own line. "Some people only show up when they're getting something. I'd give anything to protect Mom and Dad." I read it twice. Then again, the same brother who hadn't paid rent in years, who drained everything they had left, who let the house rot beneath him, now painted himself as the hero. Worse were the comments. "You're such a good son. Your sister should be ashamed." They gave her everything and she still walked away. None of them knew the truth. But they didn't want it. They wanted a story. And my family gave them one. I might have let it go. Stayed silent. But then I saw Kelly's name. My cousin, the one who once called me the glue that held everyone together. She'd liked the post. Left a heart emoji. No words. Just that. It hit harder than I expected. Because I thought she saw me. I closed the laptop. Saturday in the dark. And something inside me gave way. Not with noise. Not with fury. Just a quiet, final click. Sometimes, what exhausts you isn't how much you give. It's how invisible you feel while giving it. Some roles we carry our whole lives not because we chose them, but because no one ever asked, "Are you tired?" Have you ever been the one who always showed up and no one noticed until you stopped? Have you ever quietly walked away from something that was supposed to be forever? If you've ever felt forgotten despite everything you gave, drop a or share your story in the comments. Like this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe so you don't miss more stories that speak the truth you've never said out loud.